Hi there, I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast, brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, a personal and professional development program for physicians who want to learn about entrepreneurship. Today, we have Dr. Oleyumisi Famuyiwa. We're going to be talking about the birth of a fertility doctor. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, I'm super excited today. We have Dr. Oleyumisi Famuyiwa in the house. So nice to finally meet you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to tell you a little bit about her before we start chatting away. She's the founder of the Montgomery Fertility Center in Rockville, Maryland. She's associate clinical professor of obstetrics and gynecology at George Washington University School of Medicine and an attending physician at Holy Cross Hospital in the Department of OBGYN in Silver Spring, Maryland. She's board certified in reproductive endocrinology and infertility, as well as obstetrics and gynecology. She went to medical school in Emory. She graduated from there. Then she went to Georgetown University, and her fellowship in reproductive endocrinology and infertility was at the National Institute of Health. And she's been just quite a successful entrepreneur. She is a solopreneur. She has her office and she has state-of-the-art care that she provides to patients from all over the world. And she has her YouTube channel where she also educates her patients and anybody who's interested in these topics. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
So this is a very important stories we don't think about when we're designing our physician lives, that some of that is going to be that we're going to have difficulty designing our families. Many of us go with the illusion that we're going to be having just this wonderful family, no problems. You get the husband or your partner, and then suddenly there you are with a situation that you were not expecting. And we have that connection. Both of us had these stories of infertility ourselves. And it turns out that you were in your fellowship when you came with your story of infertility yourself. But before we go to that, let's talk about the younger Oleyumisi. Who was the one who decided to be a doctor? Was it like the young girl or the teenager? How did that happen?
Well, I don't think I have any memories of not wanting to be a doctor. I think probably by the time I was, 8, 9, maybe even younger, I've always wanted to be a doctor. It's just, there was no other option. It's just, I dreamed of it. It does help that I have several uncles who are physicians, and one of the largest hospitals in Lagos where I grew was owned by my uncle. And
So you had a little bit of an insider's view to what's going on at a hospital.
I think even before I was cognizant that my uncles were doing that, I've just always wanted to be a physician. I was the one person that would always help anyone who was in pain. When my mother had surgery, I helped to nurse her post-operatively, change her dressing. When my dad was ill, I also helped him when he had surgery, and changing his dressings always fascinated me. And so when I went to high school, biology was one of my favorite topics. I mean, I think I read the whole textbook before everybody else because I wanted to know more, like what's in there, give me more. And it was never enough. So I'd go buy my own books and bought my own books. And I think my biology teacher, bless her soul, Mrs. Adegoke, she's passed away now, saw something in me, and she would constantly feed that. And it's just that passion grew. And I grew up in Nigeria, and we had something called the A levels. I don't know if you are aware of that, but it's after high school, you can do your A levels for like 2 or 3 years. And it was a breeze for me. I didn't spend that time there. I was there for half a year before I came to America. But I had done enough in that time that when I came to college, college was a no-brainer. I was able to finish my college career in 2.5 years. It wasn't hard for me. And then medical school, of course, afterwards. So it's always just this passion, this deep search for knowledge has always been with me. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
As you went through this studying, and you just like fast tracking into college, which you did there, and going to medicine. When was the point when you decided, you know what, I'm really gonna be a fertility specialist? What was there a moment that inspired you, or a particular case or story?
Yeah, that took a little while. I think that when I was in medical school, I was one of those people. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit here. I was one of those people that liked every single topic. Like I was fascinated by psych because I had a wonderful professor who was from England, and I just loved to hear him expound on his psychiatry ideas. I could listen for days. I loved pediatrics, but I couldn't stand the kids being in pain. It was too much for me. Like, when we had to go do a circumcision or anything to the babies, I think I was probably crying more than the babies were. So I couldn't do that. I liked cardiology. Dr. Nanette Wenger is just a hero of mine, just a fabulous an icon. I think she's still there. She's not close to 100 now. She's just an incredible woman. And we used to hang on her every word. It was like, wow, she could, I was like listening to magic, but I didn't like internal medicine.
Isn't it amazing? Like we were through internal medicine, it's like, oh, is medicine for me, like through internal medicine? But yet we had these amazing professors. Our cardiology professor, we call him Chencho. That was his nickname. And then he was always chechelepe, like look for the P and then everybody was like chechelepe, even though French, it wasn't our language, it was Spanish, but everybody was chechelepe. So we have all these professors that really touch our lives, like,
It's just,
and
to me, I thought Emory was it. I don't think there was any other medical school. I still don't think there is. That's quite as good as Emory. Emory was it. I loved every single fiber of it. I loved everything. It was very hard. So when we got to third year and you had to start thinking about where you might want to do your residency in, we used to be at Grady Memorial Hospital. Downtown Atlanta is huge. And there'd be like tons of deliveries every single night. And I had a fabulous intern when I was a third year. Again, another fascinating, there's some women you just like, wow, I wish I could be like her. She was just incredible. And she is right now, she's actually the dean of medical school at Morehouse, Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice. We used to hang on her every word, just a fascinating woman. And she made it fun. I mean, deliveries were fun. She let us do deliveries. We were, as students, we would, triage our patients, work them up, and we would be up all night on we call it the deck. And believe me, you would blink and it was morning, and you wouldn't even know that time we were having so much fun. And then afterwards, you get to draw blood on all these postpartum women. And Grady at that time was 2 or 3 medical students. And you get to draw blood on almost 60 people. It was a lot, but I got good at drawing blood. I got very good at drawing blood. And so anyway, so come third year, I'm trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I thought I'd like radiology because I thought, oh, what a cush life. I just sit and look at a screen. So I took electives radiology. I probably took more electives than the people that went into radiology. I was bored. I was so bored. I'm like, oh, this is not it. So finally I said to myself, okay, intellectually, all these fields are fascinating. Intellectual, on an intellectual level. And I like that. But what was just pure fun, right? You get where I'm going? Like what was just pure joy, where the whole world just lit up. The minute I asked myself that question, that one question, it was like kaboom. I knew it. this is just fun. Yes, intellectually stimulating. I love that part too. But I came alive. So it was a no-brainer. I wanted to go into OBGYN because I was enjoying it. And during my OBGYN training, I had fantastic attendings, both male and female, that would pull me aside, give me words of wisdom. So I remember, even as an intern and as a second year resident, I'd have long conversations with my attendings into the wee hours of the night when we were on call about the different specialties. I loved surgery a lot. I loved being in the OR. So I thought maybe I'd want to go into oncology, right? You can do all the surgery you want. So Dr. Queenan, JTQ, what we call Dr. Queenan, had me visit because he knew everybody who was anybody in the GYN world. And he said, well, why don't you, sort of do a little tour around, and you've seen what we offer here in the GYN oncology program, and go around and see if you like it. So I did. St. Louis, Albert Einstein, Irvine, and it quickly dawned on me that I didn't really like people passing away. I struggled with that part. I like this.
With the babies, like with the kids crying.
Yes. So I said, no, I think I like the part of creating life versus the part of sometimes watching life slip away. So I started to explore more of the REI field, reproductive endocrinology. And lo and behold, the academic part of that was just like, oh my gosh, what a big rush. Fascinating. I mean, the basic science going on, it was incredible. So I had to come to Dr. Queen and I said, Dr. Queen, and I don't think I want to do oncology. I think I'm really, really super excited about the research going on in fertility and endocrinology. And that's what I would like to do. And one of my colleagues a year ahead of me had gotten into the NIH the year before. And he was telling me about how much leeway and how much excitement and how he could craft his own research and on and on and on. I'm like, enough already. Like, let's go over there. So,
I wanted to for me.
so I reached out to Dr. Larry Nelson at the NIH, and he was so welcoming. And then he was one of the few people studying premature ovarian failure, right? No one else was. So it was almost by default that I went into it and have never looked back. And at NIH, you can really overdose on research. Yeah, it was so good. Everything was so good. And I had a lab director that gave me free reign, even though she was not an OBGYN. She was actually a medical endocrinologist, but she wanted to grow the reproductive endocrinology part of her lab. So when I came in, I took over that brand new initiative that she was working on, and I could run with it. And we were studying insulin, like growth factor 1 and 2, the receptors, the 1 to 6 binding proteins. And she let me have free reign in that, designing all the research, the basic science for the entire lab. And we were presenting papers all over the country, publishing papers. It's really, it's really intoxicating when you're in so much enamored with what you're doing. And I think, I got a lot of research offered jobs, to work in research, even in the FDA in that role. But then I realized I really, really liked patients, probably a little bit more than I liked the
lab. The lab.
And I thought to myself, I just can't. I love the interaction with patients, talking to people, meeting people, just fascinating women who are some of the most amazing women, that I've also gone close to. So I decided, I think I'm going to do a little bit of academics. I can dabble in academics. I can teach. I love to teach. So I still have medical students, pre-med students, and nurse practitioners, nurses, residents. that I would mentor. So I like that part. And then patient care. And the thing with infertility, you get to know your patients, right? So, and in my case, I really do like my patients so much that I do stay in touch with a lot of them over the years. And we sort of grew up together.
So tell me, you went into this, we know your passion for medicine, for knowledge, for studying, for research and all this stuff. And you're in the middle of your fellowship and you're wanting to have a family.
Correct.
So tell us what happened there.
So let me tell you, my first year of fellowship, right? I start to see a lot of women with difficulty getting pregnant, and they have obstructed tubes and pelvic adhesions. And then I'm thinking, oh boy, gee, this is scary. I hope this doesn't happen. Right? So then I met my husband as a fellow. And when we first met, we decided, oh, we're not gonna have children right away, right? We'll wait a little bit because he was finishing his MBA and I was trying to get through my first year of fellowship. But then a year after that, we decided to go ahead and get married, and I was still in my fellowship, and decided, oh, probably a year after that as well. We didn't start having plans for children till later. And then I was not getting pregnant. All right. So I'm like, okay, hang on a second. Let's do the ovulation kit. Not working. All right, let's, you start to add little by little what you do in the clinic.
Very familiar with that process now.
And one of my former attendings who was in infertility, and just a woman after my own heart, I love her dearly. And she had also made a huge impression on me when I was a resident. I called her up and I said, I'd like to come talk to you. And she came, she gave me time, and we tried, it didn't work. My cycles didn't work. And we decided to go to surgery because I had a history of a ruptured appendix when I was in high school. So she did laparoscopy on me, and I had a lot of adhesions that she was able to take down. And lo and behold, a few months after that, I got pregnant, right? And I knew I got pregnant because prior to that, I was a coffee addict in medical school. Wasn't before, never tasted coffee before medical school, and never really broke the addiction, right? So then I'm going around, pick up a cup of coffee and almost gagged, like,
You were like, yes, it happened.
So that's my fertility journey there. Yes.
Well, I have a different one. In my case, I was married. We've known each other since high school. We went through medical school. We got married at the end of medical school, residency, fellowship comes. I'm an attending. We still, wanted to wait to have babies, but we had been like 5 years married and then 5 years like trying, nothing like, happening. And by then I had been an attending physician providing sedation for the extraction from the fertility clinic. And I never thought anything, like I would be one of those days, be the patient for those. And then you go through this not thinking, right? Thinking that everything is perfect, but then things are not working. So in my case, I took the pill for 5 years. And then once that was over, we did all the tests. Nothing's wrong with anybody, right? I'm an interventional pain doctor too at the time. And then I'm exposed to x-rays. So, we think, we don't know what's going on. Anyways, we go through this thing and you get injected here and all these, things that we go through. But finally I said, like, if it doesn't happen from this cycle, like, I'm done with this, because there comes a point where, you can get tired, and then you have to measure your mental sanity versus your goals. And I'm pretty sure that you go through this. And one of the things that I'm very curious about is, as physicians, I'm pretty sure you've taken care of a lot of physicians, right? Of us women, and we don't think about this. We don't think it can happen to us, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. My kids know that they're, wonderful miracle babies. I really did not enjoy the process to get pregnant or the pregnancy itself. It was very, it was really a big decision for me as a woman to really endure all these things, and more than any stigma or anything. I didn't think about that in my case. It was more about it does take a toll physically and emotionally on
I,
you.
I think that as physicians, we owe a duty to each other, a duty of compassion. You know what I mean? I think we need to give to each other that compassion, to give ourselves space, to take care of ourselves, to support our sisters as they're going through, to encourage them and let them know, hey, I'm here. I was very fortunate. I was pregnant when I was a resident, but I was in a residency program where we were very, very close to each other, right? And we supported each other. And I had several colleagues who got pregnant in residency. And the rest of us, we just rallied round and we decided we're going to cover this person so that they get the time they need with their baby. We're going to let them bond. And then when I conceived, right, towards the end of my fellowship, I was also blessed to I was working, covering residents, covering the floor. As I started my practice, I wanted to be out in the community to get to know the other doctors in the community. So I would cover the residents, right? But one of the things I'm forever grateful for was Holy Cross Hospital. It was a very, very close, at least at that time, maybe things have changed, very close-knit environment. The other attendings were so supportive. The nurses were so supportive. The staff were so supportive. They had a lactation room that was almost like a Zen room where you could almost meditate. They had a lactation consultant, and they made it available to us. So I used the lactation room to pump while I was there. The lactation consultant, the lactation service, they would come in, they would help me. I wasn't a patient, but they had all those resources available. And then there were other attendings as well, like myself, who were also using the lactation room. So we sort of rally around each other and sharing jokes and stories about our babies and best tips and everything. So that support that I got, I felt whole. I felt supported. I felt loved. I felt like I belonged in this place. And that's because the hospital, the institution had made it a priority to support women who were, you know, lactating, breastfeeding, getting pregnant, supporting their own staff. It wasn't about just patients.
I think that if there's something that we can tell the listeners here, physicians, as you're designing your own life, and maybe you don't have a history of infertility yourself, but maybe somebody close to you, is very likely that they're going to have one, that we, through our systems, as you say, support each other with these stories, because it's really, as you've mentioned before we started recording here, a lot of women go through the stigma. Culturally, it might be a stigma because you're not able to get pregnant, that's something to deal with. Plus the fact that you are going to be, trying to juggle life with work. In this case, life is like really not being that easy for you. And there's a lot of appointments that you might need to miss, or sorry, work time that you might need to miss because of appointments and things like that. So being supportive of each other and creating systems, as you say, like in your institution, to support yourselves. I in my institution, it was really great at the time. They were very supportive. They wanted me to continue on staff after I went through this. I had 11 weeks. Even, I went through the whole thing of infertility, plus I went through 11 weeks of bed rest. and they were still waiting for me. And at that point, I really, it was like really too much for me, and we decided to do different for our family. But that's so important when you're going through this, that you don't feel alone. And then for the health of the system, it's really important, not only taking care of the patients.
Absolutely. Physician, take care of thyself. We don't take care of ourselves enough.
So let's move on to, we've had our stories, we've had your training. Let's move on to the technology itself, what it takes to really run this type of lab, and the business in general, because you have different aspects, obviously, of the business, not only running your daily business as it goes. You have your technology that you have to do as a physician, and you also have to make sure that you're servicing your patients in the way that the message is really appropriate for them and they're listening to it.
I think the challenge with the fertility lab is always going to be the equipment, right? The lab equipment is extremely expensive. You could easily spend, $750,000 or more in getting the right equipment to start with. So to start with, people considering starting with may have to use a bank loan. I was fortunate that I had some investments that I didn't have to necessarily take out a bank loan to buy the initial equipment. And then I was very fortunate as well that I had a friend she was the lab director of a university setting. And she called me one day and said, "Oh, by the way, the university's closing this lab down. You can have the equipment if you just tell them you want it for peanuts." I'm like, "You gotta be joking," right? I call them up. I'm like, "Yeah, I want to pay this much for everything." And they go, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I should have gone lower." They just wanted it gone. I'm like, "Let me take it off your hands." So I got 2 hoods. I got an ICSI machine that's one of the best research instruments. I got inverted microscopes. I got centrifuges. I didn't buy the incubators because I wanted a more modern one, anti-vibration table, and I wasn't even ready then. So I bought all that equipment and I kept it in storage for an additional probably couple of years. But I couldn't pass up on the equipment. And then when I finally started out with a small lab, I rented some space in the surgery center, and then I moved my equipment over and started the lab. And she calls me, she goes, "Yeah, I don't really like where I am right now. I'd like to come work for you." I'm like, "Are you kidding? I mean, seriously? Like, really?" She goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Please." And she was a former CAP inspector. So she set the whole lab up, set up all the protocols. I couldn't even help her in that. Plus I had her equipment. And so that's how we started. And then 10 years on, I realized that the equipment needed changing, right? The hoods had gotten old, and we called the manufacturer and they said, well, they would have to fly someone from, where was it being made? I'm not sure if it was Belgium or Germany. They'd have to fly someone down to America. I'm like, seriously? So I called Origio. I'm like, you have to fly someone down. That means I have to pay to fly someone down from Europe, and they would have to come in, and they weren't even sure that they could fix the motherboard. So I said, you know what? How about just replace the hoods? And so I did. I bought brand new hoods, threw out those ones, and then I decided I wanted to get a second ICSI machine. And again, I like the research instruments that is called RI. I think they're British based. They're better than some of the local, the Narishigis. They're more expensive, but the way my lab director explained it to me is they're like mechanical based versus automated that needs a computer, because and those need oil, and if they gum up, you got to send it back to the manufacturer to clean it and restart it. So we have this thing. So I mean, I haven't touched it with and both of my ICSI equipment had sealed the laser for biopsies and stuff attached to it. But she goes in there, it's like you're operating a space age thing. Again, I don't operate it, but you. And then at that time was when infertility was transitioning to using mini incubators, right? Back in the day, everybody was using this huge incubators. The mini incubators are more precision based. You don't diffuse your gas too much when you open them up to inspect the embryos. So those were the state of the art at that time. So I decided to bite the bullet. I got a couple of those. So throughout, what I've always done is sort of reinvest, So if I find something is coming out, I want to reinvest. I want to get the latest technology. I'll give you an example. I had my lab director went for vacation for 2 weeks, and I brought in someone who had done thousands of cases at NYU and at Yale, and she doesn't want to work full time. So she came in. She was like, "Ooh, you have your setup is great. Why do you have all these expensive equipment?" I'm like, "Well, is there any other way to go? I need to give my lab director the very best so that she can put out the very best, right?" And then another thing we've done, we have this thing called the matcher, which is a electronic witnessing. Now, what that means is in a regular lab, when you're moving one specimen from one station to the other station, two embryologists have to come together and say, "Yep, that's James Smith. Yep, this is James Smith. Okay, that's John Doe. Yep." It's called witnessing, and you initial it. Well, that's still human based and subject to error anytime you have human based stuff. So we went with a product, AI based, if you will. It's more barcoding, if and it generates a barcode, and we can label every single specimen and tag it to the patient from the very first time the patient hits the door, right? They get tagged. And anything coming out of them, their eggs, their sperm, their embryos, is equally tagged throughout the entire lab, right? And even when we store it, the tag is on there, right? And so when you touch anything, there's a barcode reader it looks like a cell phone, and you scan it, and the code has to match, right? And then it'll give you a signal, yep, it matches. If not, it sends off an alarm bell, red, blowing, blowing, blowing. So I think we can't just rely on human beings. So yes, we still know, and we're looking at what specimen we move around, and we certainly do timeouts, and we look at the patient's name and then information, but this is the ultimate backup to eliminate the possibility of an error. You have to set your thing at zero tolerance, right? It's not like, oh, I can, mix a little half water. No. The possibility of error in an IVF lab has to be set to zero tolerance. And it's not an inexpensive endeavor, but we have chosen, again, my belief is to reinvest, right? So I constantly reinvest.
Well, the cost of not investing on this particular technology that is available now with artificial intelligence for an IV lab is like, just think about that, like putting an embryo where it doesn't belong, right? In a human that doesn't belong. So yeah. If the technology is there, then you should, it's not an expense, it's an investment that you're doing for the quality that you're providing your patients. So you're bringing a very important point in terms of business building and creation and planning, is that you're reinvesting. So you're not only spending the money, you're not only, because you've done it all, you've always done it like this, and this is the way of the past and it's worked. It's like, how can you bring your lab to a level that it really stays up with the times? And the way to do that is you have to set some money aside and reinvest in the business, right? So not spend it all. And not only that you're bringing technology, you have to evolve. Otherwise, people are not going to come to you any longer, right?
Exactly. So reinvestment, always keeping an eye on what's new. And another form of investment is also in myself, right? So, and in my staff. So we go to meetings, right? We go to the SRM and we go to the donor conference. Recently went to the Progenesis conference. So you learn at these conferences, and not just me, actually. When I go, I take my staff with me. I want my patient coordinator to know what's the latest, thing from the FDA about the rules for donor services. So I need her participating because when she goes, she's also going to network with other people in the industry. And then we're going to bring that knowledge back home, right? My lab director obviously needs to integrate and mingle with her embryology colleagues. And again, what's new, what's coming down the pike, how do we stay abreast? And then at the end of those meetings, we come back. We come back home and what did you learn? What did you find out? What's going on? What are the new things coming out? And it's the same thing I share when I go to conferences. I make a point of learning as much as I can, and not only learning, networking while I'm there. It's exciting.
With that,
It's
you're doing quite a few things. You're taking care of your patient, but you're also taking care of your team. You're making them part of your decisions. You're making them part of the whole process, so they feel invested in your mission, right?
correct,
For your clinic. So it's
correct.
very important from a business point of view to keep all that also
Yes,
as part of your whole operations for
correct.
the business. So let's talk a little bit about your message, because you are not only, you're here on a podcast with me, so you go to podcasts and you talk to people about fertility and women and all this beautiful message that you're bringing around, but you also have a YouTube channel that you've built. Tell us why you built that YouTube channel, when you built it, and then if you've had any difficulties, any learning that you have to tell people, do this or don't do this when you're building your own
Yeah.
YouTube channel.
So my YouTube channel, I first started out doing like animated videos where I talk about, oh, here's an egg fertilizing, and here's it moving around, and here's it implanting. And then I would post surgeries that I would do, and here's how you take out a fibroid in a uterus. And I love researching and talking and finding new things about science, and I can easily digest a good book. For instance, I read Sanjay Gupta's book on Keep Sharp, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's talking about everything I talk about with my fertility patients. Hey, Sanjay, if you're listening, please, we got to talk some more about this, right? Get me on Sanjay's podcast. And I thought, what a fantastic thing. So I read the whole book like in one day and reread it again. And I could pick out points. And I said, my patients need to know about this. So I put a sort of an infomercial about it. And here's what you can do to help your brain. Guess what? While you're helping your brain, you're also helping your eggs and you're helping your sperm, and it might result in so information like that. And then gradually, what you might not know, Dr. Nuna says she's an introverted introvert. I think I'm worse than her. I am really naturally introverted. Um, Naturally, I can talk to people that I feel comfortable with. It's easy for me with my patients because I love my patients, and I get close to them. But it took another leap to say, I want to actually start, talking in the open. And one of the reasons I did is like sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to share some information. How do I get this out? It took me a while to be confident to do that. So I, you know, decided to give information. And then one of the things that we did was we might have like several, I would say you want several minutes, maybe 20 minutes of information, but most people don't listen to that. They listen in little short bursts. So what I decided to do was take a few clips and so I can highlight things that you can really hone on, and just gradually started doing more of it and exploring that more and more.
So let's practice with that right now. So first, we're gonna imagine that we're doing a clip about just in general for physicians who are having trouble getting to the state of pregnancy. So we're gonna do like a 15-30 seconds of what you would tell a physician who's having problems with that. What would you tell somebody who tells, you know what, I'm really having trouble with this? What would you tell them?
I think that what I would tell any physician, the first thing is find out information, reach out, reach out to get as much information as you can. Don't be ashamed. Reach out to your colleagues, ask questions. Hey, what's going on? If you know any of your infertility colleagues, talk to them, reach out to them. You won't go wrong. What do you have to lose? Just reach out and ask questions, and don't feel ashamed about it, right? Just reach out to your colleagues and lean on them. Let them help you. You might just be surprised.
That's awesome. Now let's move on to another clip. Now we're gonna do a clip for physicians who have their own businesses, and we want to give them like 2 or 3 tips about having your business. Like we discussed about investing and helping your teams and all that stuff. So what 2 or 3 tips would you give somebody who has their business, a physician?
I would say, number one, talk to people who are doing the same thing that you want to do and get some information. Talk to physicians who have done it and are doing it well, and physicians who feel that they may have made a few missteps and they could learn from certain things. So just talk to people, ask questions, right? And that's probably where I would start. And then one of the things that we as doctors don't realize is a medical practice is really a business. We don't think about that. It's a business. So we have to switch our thinking from just a doctor thinking to this is a business. How do I run it as a business? How do I run it so I can pay rent? I can pay my expenses, right? What is your profit and loss margin? Things that we weren't taught in medical school. No one taught you that, right? So you need to learn a little bit about the business side of medicine, I would say.
And then now our third clip is that we're going to talk to people about building a YouTube channel. So if you're going to build a YouTube channel now that you've had yours for some time for patient education, which 3 things would you tell them to be very specific about when building their YouTube channel?
I would say just start. Just start. So what you don't get it right? So what you make it a little messy? So what your videos don't look the best at the time when you put it out? It doesn't matter. Just do it anyway. Just slap a little, even if it's just your cell phone, slap your cell phone there, record yourself. Who cares what it looks like? Just start.
That's awesome. And any other tips that you want to give to our listeners today?
No, I think whatever you do, enjoy yourself, have fun at it. Just have fun with whatever you're doing. Just as long as you can have fun with what you're doing. To me, that's the key thing. Just have fun.
So I would guess that over 20 something years since you first had fun delivering in the OR so many years ago as a medical student, you're still having fun?
I'm still having fun. Love it. Look, you know what? I got a text message. One of my patients, we talked back and forth, texted me on Wednesday and said, "Oh, Dr. Famuyiwa, the twins are celebrating their 18th birthday. We would love for you to come." Right? So I'm invited to an 18-year-old birthday party for twins. I can't imagine. I love it.
That's awesome. My twins are going to be 18 years shortly.
Yeah.
And they were the product of fertility. And I'm very grateful. We're very grateful for science, very grateful for physicians. I'm very proud of being surrounded by such wonderful minds and compassionate people who have decided to help people like me. I never thought, and here we are. So thank you for being here today. It's been such a wonderful time, wonderful conversation with you. Thank you for all you do for your patients, and keep it up.
Thank you very much.
Yes, working for joy and not for need. That's what we
want. That's right.
Have a great day.
All righty. You too.
Well, guys, that was it for today. I hope that you had as much fun as I did listening to these fertility stories and how you could not only become a physician as a fertility physician, but also a business person, a business physician. You can also find out more about Dr. Famuyiwa at her website, Montgomery fertilitycenter.com, and she also has a YouTube channel called Montgomery Fertility Center. I hope that you learned a lot today. Please check out our new YouTube channel called Maxallure Mastermind. You can also visit our maxallure.com website, where you can learn a lot more about our mastermind. And I hope that you enjoy this, share with your family and friends, subscribe to all our channels so that you can get our latest information. We'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.